You need to stop scrolling and listen to this because everything we thought we knew about the future of the iPhone has just changed. We are still months away from the next launch, but a massive leak has just dropped that gives us our first real look at the iPhone 18 Pro lineup. And if this information is accurate, Apple is about to pull off the biggest design revolution since the iPhone X. We're talking about the end of the notch, the end of the cutout, and the beginning of the single slab of glass dream. But it is not just about the screen. There are details here about a weird new launch schedule, huge upgrades for the cheaper models, and a piece of technology that engineers have been trying to figure out for nearly a decade. So, let's break down exactly what is happening, because the iPhone 18 Pro might just make your current phone look like a relic. The information comes from a source that the tech world takes very seriously. This isn't just some random forum post. This comes from Digital Chat Station on the Chinese platform Weibo. If you follow supply chain leaks, you know that name. This account has over 3 million followers and has a scary accurate track record when it comes to predicting display specs and camera hardware long before Apple announces them. Of course, nothing is official until Tim Cook walks on stage, and prototypes can always change, but when a source with this kind of history drops a report this detailed, it usually means the supply chain is already moving. And the claims they are making this time are bold, specifically regarding the iPhone 18 Pro and the iPhone 18 Pro Max expected in 2026. Let's start with the basics before we get to the crazy stuff. According to the leak, Apple is going to stick with the display sizes we are expecting for the iPhone 17. The Pro model will likely feature a 6.3-inch display, and the Pro Max is sticking with that massive 6.9-inch screen. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds boring. No foldable phone? No massive size increase? But here's why that is actually good news. Apple seems to have found the Goldilocks zone. The 6.3-inch size is optimized for people who want power but still need to use their phone with one hand, while the 6.9-inch model is strictly for the power users, the people who prioritize battery life, video editing, and media consumption above everything else. By keeping the physical dimensions consistent, Apple's engineers don't have to waste time redesigning the chassis. Instead, they can focus entirely on what is happening inside the screen. And that brings us to the headline feature, the one we have been waiting for literally for years, under-display Face ID. According to Digital Chat Station, both the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max will finally move the Face ID sensors underneath the display panel. This is huge. Think back to 2017. The iPhone X introduced the notch. We hated it, but we got used to it. Then we got the smaller notch. Then we got the dynamic island. But the goal has always been to make those sensors invisible. This is incredibly difficult technology to pull off. Face ID isn't just a camera. It is a complex array of sensors, including an infrared camera, a dot projector, and a flood illuminator. To make this work, the screen needs to be transparent enough to let infrared light pass through to scan your face, but still needs to display pixels so you don't see a weird gap in your wallpaper. We have seen other companies try under-display cameras, and let's be honest, the results have been mixed. The photos usually look hazy, or you can see a weird pixelated square on the screen. Apple rarely adopts technology first. They wait until they can do it best. If these reports are true, it means Apple has finally solved the physics problem. They have figured out how to hide the sensors without compromising face scanning security or display quality. This could be the start of the all-screen era we have been dreaming about. But this raises a massive question. If the sensors are hidden, what happens to the dynamic island? The dynamic island was Apple's clever way of turning a hardware flaw, the cutout, into a software feature. If the cutout is gone, does the feature die? Not necessarily. The leak suggests that while the Face ID sensors are going under the screen, the selfie camera itself might still need a tiny hole. However, rumors from the information suggest Apple might move that camera to the top left corner or make the hole punch incredibly small. But even if the glass is totally clear, Apple will likely keep the dynamic island as a purely software element. Think about how much we use it now for timers, Uber rides, music controls, and AirDrop. Apple isn't going to throw that UI away. Instead, imagine a dynamic island that appears when you need it and then completely vanishes when you don't, leaving you with uninterrupted video. That is the ultimate goal. Now, let's talk about the phones that most people actually buy, the standard models. The leak outlines a lineup that includes the standard iPhone 18 and a device referred to as the iPhone Air 2. Here is the exciting part for non-pro users. The leak claims these phones will finally get 120Hz LTPO displays. For years, Apple has kept its smooth promotion technology locked behind the expensive Pro tier. If you bought a standard iPhone 15 or 16, you were stuck with a 60Hz screen, which feels jarring if you have ever used a faster display. If this leak holds up, 2026 is the year that ends. Bringing 120Hz to the base models will be a massive upgrade for the average user, making scrolling, gaming, and animations feel instantly more premium. However, there's a catch. The standard models will reportedly not get the under-display Face ID. They will likely stick with the visible pill-shaped cutout and the standard dynamic island. This creates a clear ladder. Pay more for the futuristic invisible screen, or pay less for a great screen that still has a cutout. Here is where the leak gets a little strange, and it involves the release date. We're used to Apple announcing everything in September like clockwork. But this report, supported by some other industry whispers, suggests a split launch strategy. The iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max with the fancy new screens are expected to launch in September 2026. However, the standard iPhone 18 and iPhone Air 2 might not arrive until March 2027. This would be a radical shift. Why would Apple do this? It could be supply chain management. Manufacturing these new displays is difficult, and spreading the launch out relieves pressure on the factories. Or it could be a marketing tactic. By giving the Pro models their own exclusive window, Apple ensures that the new technology gets all the headlines before the cheaper models come out later. It also smooths out their revenue, giving them two massive sales spikes a year instead of just one. So, why does any of this matter right now? Because the iPhone 18 Pro represents a shift in Apple's design philosophy. For the last decade, the front of the iPhone has been defined by compromise. We accepted the notch and the island because we wanted the technology. But if Apple finally achieves under-display Face ID, they are removing the barrier between the user and the content. It opens the door for new gesture controls, cleaner interfaces, and a device that feels less like a piece of tech and more like a magic window. It is the kind of change that influences smartphone design for the next 5 years. In my opinion, if this leak is accurate, this is the upgrade we have been waiting for. I know every year people say it's the same phone, and often they are right. Incremental camera bumps and faster chips are nice, but they don't change how you use the device. Moving the sensors under the display changes the fundamental interaction with the screen. It is the final step in the evolution of the smartphone form factor. If you're holding on to an iPhone 12, 13, or even 14, and you are wondering when to upgrade, the iPhone 18 cycle looks like it's going to be the super cycle. You get the design refresh, you get the display technology maturity, and you likely get a device that will look modern for a very long time. The standard models getting 120Hz is also a win for consumers, forcing the entire industry to finally move past 60Hz panels once and for all. Of course, we have to stay grounded. This is the tech industry. Delays happen. Under-display tech is notoriously difficult to manufacture at the scale Apple needs. We're talking about millions of units. If the yield rates aren't high enough, Apple will push this back to the iPhone 19 without hesitation. They would rather release a polished product late than a buggy product early. But the fact that sources like Digital Chat Station are talking about specific screen sizes and refresh rates this far out suggests that the train has left the station. The prototypes are likely in testing right now. We are looking at a future where the hardware disappears. No black bars cutting into your movies. No pill shape floating over your games. Just pixels. It is an exciting prospect, and it makes the roadmap for the next few years incredibly interesting to watch. As we get closer to 2026, we're going to see more parts leak, and we will get a better idea of whether that March 2027 split launch is real. That is everything we know so far about the iPhone 18 Pro, the death of the notch, and the future of Apple's lineup. This is definitely a story we're going to keep tracking closely. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the leaks, Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the updates. Share this video with your friends who are still complaining about the notch, and hit the bell icon to stay ahead of the curve. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.